you, Trey, for joining us. And
Yeah.
if you haven't, I think you've now met everyone, including
Sure.
Sarah, who is our legal counsel. And many members are not aware of the value that Sarah brings to the table for our members. And she's on here just to answer questions and provide a little bit of information. Again, it's just these quarterly benefits calls are an opportunity to spotlight some of the things that we actually have available for members to use. And so today we're talking about the legal benefits that we offer. So Sarah, I'd like to turn it over to you, and maybe you can share some things with Trey, and then this is very informal. So if you have other questions, and this can morph into a call about other selected member benefits as well.
Sure.
So Sarah, do you want to take it away?
Awesome. Thank you, Patty. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my backstory so you know that fairly unusual history of a trade association like ours having an attorney on staff that's available to answer member calls. So for 5 years before I came to Selected, I worked with our former legal counsel, Michael Cohen, at a big Washington, D.C. international law firm. And then my husband got a job in Indiana at Notre Dame University teaching law. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do because I'd been an antitrust and FTC lawyer for 5 years, and there isn't really much of that in Indiana. So, well, right at that time, the Selected had decided that Michael, who was then billing at $1,000 an hour, was too expensive, and they needed to reduce their legal fees, very understandably. And so they were looking for a different lawyer too that was more in budget. And I had just come back from having my first baby. We were moving to the Midwest, and everything just fell into place. So it's now been 11 years I've been in-house at Selected.
Yeah.
Being in-house gives me a lot more flexibility to assist members with their problems, which is great. So members can call me with any sort of legal problem they're having. I get a lot of calls about families. You know, we can't get, with families being so differently structured now than they used to be, we can't get the right people to sign the paper, or no one can agree about what to do with mom, or those sorts of things. That happens to a funeral home not that often, but I get calls on that every week. And we sit down and figure out a way to figure out how to push the family toward making a decision, or in the worst case scenario, just finding another funeral home for that family to make them their problem. But but that happens very rarely, but occasionally it just comes down to the point where like, please just go away.
Well, look, I worked for a funeral home like that in the beginning of my career, where there were 3 brothers, and they fought constantly about anything and everything.
Absolutely. So I do a lot of work with that types of thing. Another thing that I do for our members is act as a consultant for their local attorneys when they're having a problem related to something like litigation, or a mistake that they made in the past and the attorney needs to know more about funeral service. I'm able to step in and talk to their attorney and provide them any information they need to familiarize themselves with what the norms are in funeral service, so that they can provide the top level of representation that is possible. I also do a fair amount of work in forms. We have some forms on the website, and Patty will show you where they are in a little bit. But I also do very personalized forms. So sometimes people will call me with a problem that's a little unusual, and they want to have a form that protects them, that the family can sign. And I'm able to quickly, most of the time within a couple of hours, create a form that they can use for that situation that will protect them down the line. So if you go to our form site and you don't see what you need, just call me and we'll make it happen. And then it will go on the website for everyone else to use. But yeah, so there's a lot of that type of work that's done. I also do all of Selected's legal work itself. So I do our contracts and our trademarks and anything else that we need to be doing. So yeah, I'm sort of a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy it, and I'm always happy to talk with members. My contact number on the Selected website is my cell phone. And I work part-time, but I work flex time. So I'm available the vast majority of the time. If you need to pick up the phone and call me, I will almost always answer. And if I don't, I'll get back to you soon.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So any questions about what I do or what I can and can't do for members?
Oh, I think you explained that beautifully.
Awesome.
What's the strangest thing you've ever seen?
Oh, the best one. I get a lot of really good ones. I think the funniest one that I've ever had was, sorry, my cat's trying to be the star of the show. The was one of our members called me, and she's from a very small rural town, and she said, Sarah, the police found a severed head by the side of the. This is a public story now, so it's not confidential in any way. Normally, your conversations are confidential, but this it turns out well. And she's fine with sharing it because it's kind of amazing. The police found a severed head by the side of the road, and they think it came from my funeral home. What do I do? Like, ah! So, like any good lawyer, the first thing I started doing was asking questions. So the one that came to mind first was, so do you think it came from your funeral home? And she's like, no, I'm sure it didn't. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is much better. But we ended up working out a PR strategy to where we could get the family in to do the identification or the lack of identification. And then in a way that didn't upset them or make them worried that there'd been something bad done to their mother. And funnily enough, a few years ago, there was a story in Reuters, a 6-part story called what was it called? It was about the body parts trade.
Yeah.
And there's like the 4th section of that story is about my severed head.
Oh my gosh. Well,
so it ended up being a famous severed head, but they still don't know who the lady was. They've never discovered her. They think she was part of that body parts trade and just kind of like rolled out of the back of a pickup or something.
God. Well, we had a situation a couple of years ago that our lawyer has been our lawyer for, I don't know, forever. And we had a family member come in. She worked for another person, and the person she worked for brought her in. Her husband had passed away at a local hospital. But the funeral director was meeting with the family, and they couldn't figure out, she was nebulous about the date of birth, couldn't remember which one she gave. And through some digging, it turned out she was on the top 10 most wanted, and he was too, for the FBI.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Whoa.
So when we called the FBI to come over to the funeral home, and of course they came and did their thing, but they wanted to have the lady arrested on our property. And so we were a little bit hesitant about that. So we had to get our attorney involved. And of course he told the FBI that was not going to happen. But we got them to where they were. They ended up arresting the wife and extraditing her back to Portland or wherever she was from. But that was a 4 or 5. We were able to get the FBI through my attorney not to mention the funeral home that was in the press release that went nationwide, because I didn't want that publicity that we had assisted the FBI with a family. I don't know. I just didn't want that publicity. And I certainly didn't want them storming the funeral home, because they were talking about cording off of 2 blocks and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't want that. But that's the strangest thing I've seen.
That is really strange. That's a really top story there. I've never had another of our funeral homes have to ward off the FBI from a raid.
It was her name was Victoria Kravitz.
What did she do?
She was on the top 10 most wanted, and he was too, of the FBI's sexually abusing children.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. And some of them were our own kids, but they'd been on the run for 18 years.
Oh, that's awful.
It was bad.
Wow. I'm glad they got her at last.
Yeah, yeah, they did. And it was the really backstory about it is that the deputy sheriff that had tracked them for years had just retired and was a bailiff at the court, and the district attorney got to go over there and tell her that they had finally found them. But
That's awesome.
I mean, but the funny thing is if she'd done just a little bit of research and known what to say, we never would have been suspicious about it, ever. And it was taking months for the Social Security Administration to kick it back, because in Mississippi, we just got on an electronic death registering system. We've been on paper death certificates forever. So strange.
That is really strange.
Yeah.
Wow, she probably picked Mississippi for that reason too.
She was hiding in Lake Washington. Their place looked like the Unabomber cabin. It was bizarre.
Wow,
Totally bizarre.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
They say truth is stranger than fiction, right?
Yeah, it is. It was bizarre. Hey, let me ask you a question. Can you walk me through the family follow-up? I got my surveys and I got my letters, and walk me through that. Do I need to register? How do I?
Let me just pull this. I'm going to pull up the family follow-up page for you as well while we're doing this. But so you actually physically received your surveys, Trey?
I did.
Okay. So yeah, so you're good to go. You are good to go with your surveys. So I'm just going to pull you to, I'm going to share this page here so you can actually take a look at it. But so what's included in the packet is you have an actual survey, you have a cover letter, which is provided, and then there's an envelope for which to provide to your family so they can return the form back. So the idea is that you want to provide this survey tool to your families that you serve so they can provide feedback on the service that they've received from you. And you receive every year 100 at no cost. It's just part of your membership fee. So those 100 are provided. We don't care if you use our program. You're just required as part of your membership to do some sort of a survey evaluation to your family. So
I like the survey.
Pardon?
I like it.
Yeah, it's a great tool. You can, you measure those 17 data points. So in terms of the distribution of it, the way it works is that letter can be riding along with the survey. Some of our members, what they do is they'll do their own cover letter to accompany the survey and integrate even some of that information from the letter that we provide from Selected. It's just a way to demonstrate to your families that you are part of a bigger organization and that you have this high level of care. And so we think it's a nice way to leverage your Selected membership by sharing this with the family in some way. Again, I've seen firms that will include that letter plus their own cover letter, or they might integrate the letter that we provide into a document on their own letterhead. So you can provide this to families in whatever method you choose to. One of the things that I found with families that have, or firms that have the highest rate of return on their surveys are either hand delivering these, providing them to a family after the service, or mailing them, but not putting them into a folder with all kinds of other literature. I think that often if people are trying to use that as a form of distribution, it gets lost in the shuffle and typically will end up in a closet, and that form will never, that feedback will never come to you. So the way it works is the family has the option to fill that form out, throw it in the envelope, which you provide, that postage paid envelope. And then what it does is it goes to a third party called Industry Insights, and they aggregate all of those reports, all of that feedback. And then you log into a portal with your login credentials, and you can actually read the results online. And then at the end of the year, you receive a report, and I'll just show you so this is, I think this is kind of the aggregated, this is actually talking about the program in itself. Let me go back one,
And
Sarah.
Trey, while Patty's bringing that up too, I'll also add, Patty mentioned that we provide each member with 100 free surveys. You can order as many more as you need. I know at your call volume, you'll
Yeah,
blow through those in a couple of months. So
Right,
please
right.
know that,
Yep.
that you're able to order as many as you need.
oh, good, good,
But those first 100 are free every year for you.
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's short-sighted of me not to go down that. And we also do provide during the course of a year, we do what we call our mid-year savings event. So we reach out to you as well to make sure that you have enough surveys. There's also additional options that you can order in addition to adding additional survey sets. You can add multiple locations.
Mhm.
You can actually have hard copies sent to your location if you want to. That's just another option. You can add, there is an added fee for this, but you can have a report done by individual funeral directors. So tracking by each funeral director in terms of performance and response.
Mhm.
So that's another additional option that you can add to your order. So again, that information is on this form here. It's called the options form. And every year, like I said, we always come back to you and ask you every year, you let us know if you want to continue to use this survey form. It's just, again, you don't have to use ours, but we want you to use something, and it really does fill the bill for most of our members. And it's just a nice way to actually survey it, and then you get the results, and you can see the results on this. I'm just pulling this up real quickly. We do a report at the end of the year, and it shows the collective responses from the families that are served. Okay, so you can see 5 is the highest you can get for any particular area. Obviously, our members do a very good job of delivering exceptional service. But we do calculate that, aggregate that all into an annual report, and you can kind of see year to year how that has worked out for our members.
Yeah, perfect.
Also, we recently added the ability to do electronic distribution. That's one of our newer features on the program as well. So just another option under your options orders form. So electronic survey distribution is another option. So we try to meet people where they are, depending on the families you serve. Sometimes it's nice to have different ways to distribute the surveys, because depending on the survey, the people that are doing the responses, typically older people will like the hard copies, but when you're dealing with younger people or maybe more tech savvy, they're accustomed to do surveys on electronically. So, but that's kind of, does that cover your
Absolutely.
questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
And if you ever have any questions along the way, or you need additional surveys throughout the year, you can let us know. Donna Anderson is our contact here at Selected for the family follow-up, or Dan Beavers. Either one of them, they're listed here. You can call them, or Daniel or I, or anybody can really help you, but they're the experts on the program.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent.
Any other, it's all you here, Trey. Any other questions on programs?
That's the only question I had right there.
Okay. I just wanted to also show you real quickly when Sarah was talking about the location of that folder for the legal documents. If you see where I am here, I'm under tools, under selected business solutions. If I click on that, and up pops this little graphic here, and right here in legal, if you click on that, that's how you get to what she was talking about with these resources.
And Patty, if you go back to the main source, there's also a button for FTC things. And I didn't talk about this earlier, but I should have. The FTC is currently up for review. And we submitted a white paper on that. And we also do a lot of FTC compliance work. And we have compliance programs that can help you train your staff. So those compliance programs, we have 2 that are particularly relevant. One is a mystery shopping program. So if you're worried about what would happen to if someone popped through like a mystery shopper from the FTC, you can actually get a friend who maybe a fellow business owner, or maybe someone, they don't need to know anything about funeral service, but they can use our mystery shopping program to come in, sort of mystery shop your staff, see what happens, provide the report for you. And they also have questions in that relate to the customer service experience. So it's not just about FTC, it's mostly about FTC, but it also adds on some of those customer service questions to see how they felt the experience was. The other thing we have there is the training compliance modules. And here we have several videos that touch on the core ways that people violate the funeral rule. And they're just funny clips. The staff put them together a number of years ago. We all pitched in together and filmed these videos. And the videos themselves are like 3 to 5 minutes. I think they're mostly around 3 minutes. But one of them talks about handing out the price list at the right time, which is, as you know, the #1 way people get in trouble with the FTC these days.
Yeah.
And another one has to do with making sure the price list isn't buried under too much information. That's another frequent violator. And to make sure that you're updating your price list on a regular basis. So they're humorous, they're short, they can stick in your staff's minds, and they only take a couple minutes during a staff meeting if you want to review those things.
Yeah.
A lot of our members have found them very helpful.
What is the FTC updating? I know they're going to update it, but what are some of the updates that they're going to do?
We really don't know yet. I'm hoping that they're going to decide we don't need much updating because the market's sort of taking care of that. But I believe they've shown in the past they are interested in covering internet and having prices available on websites, et cetera. I think that's a big can of worms and it's going to be very confusing for funeral service. So we've advocated that only apply if you are only on the internet, but if you have a brick and mortar business, you wouldn't have to do that. So that would apply to these direct cremation providers that don't have any information on their websites and aren't covered by the funeral rule, because currently the internet isn't covered at all.
Well, are we talking about that heritage cremation?
Yep, stuff like that. Where you have, all they do is internet and they operate out of a van, more or less.
And yeah, that place is I can't remember the guy's name. What they do is they operate over the internet and then try to contact local providers.
Contract it out.
Yeah, but that guy, I mean, isn't what he's doing somewhat illegal?
I've complained to the FTC about him before that it's deceptive, because what you think you're getting, service from Heritage, is not at all what you're actually getting. But so far, I don't think they've done much with it. The FTC has really been focusing recently on internet fraud and COVID fraud. So I think this white paper that I submitted almost a year ago. I think actually it was a year ago. It was June 15th. But it's been almost a year, and I expected 6 to 9 months, but maybe a year, but I think it's going to be even longer. I haven't heard any movement so far, but when that happens, we'll stay on top of it and keep you informed about what's going on and what you need to do to comply with any changes. And we'll certainly continue to try to reduce to lobby to make sure those rules are as uninvasive as possible.
The only thing that I know about that guy is, and only dealing I've had with him, is that we had a family who worked at St. Dominic's Hospital, which is a fairly large hospital here. And she had contacted him because they advertised anywhere from like $6.95 to $9.95 for cremation. And, no crematory in Mississippi will cremate for him. And because he never paid his bill, for one, he never pays you. But the other side of it is one of the mortuary services was losing business because he was using him. And then I think the state board, the funeral service, has issued a ruling or a warning not to use the guy. I think his name's AJ Damiano or something like that. But the body sat in the morgue for 10 days. So,
It's crazy.
Yeah.
There's also a number of these businesses that are shady where they'll advertise that really cheap price, and the fine print doesn't say that they add on the actual price of the cremation on top of that.
Nice.
And that's how they can advertise really low prices, but the actual price is much higher when the family gets the bill because they're using a third-party provider, and they're saying, well, that's just a cash advance. It's not the cremation. Well, what else are you selling if you're doing a direct cremation?
Right.
So,
Right.
so yeah, there's definitely some problematic behavior going on in the low end of the marketplace, and we're
Yeah,
certainly trying to
yeah.
address that and make it a level playing field.
Yeah. It's bizarre. It is bizarre, particularly with that guy.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Your families that are using this FEMA relief package, have they gotten any money back yet, or where are they in the process of using it?
Well, the families that we had about 125 COVID deaths. They have, well, at least half of them have applied for it and have been successful in navigating the process. To my knowledge, they haven't gotten their money to date, but that they feel comfortable that they will. So no one has come back to the funeral home saying that the government has rejected it, or they need more paperwork, or they don't have this, or they don't have that. I mean, they've had some good experiences with it.
Good. And has there been any particular, if they had any trouble, have you noticed anything they're particularly having trouble with? But you say mostly it's gone smoothly.
No, I mean, obviously the first day when they tried to call, computer crash, but so, they've all had the death certificates properly formatted for them, and the contracts that have signed, the receipts that they've paid. Most of them have gone back to pulled any kind of receipts they've had, where they had to buy cemetery property and or pay to open and close the grave or bought a monument. Normally, you have a contract for those, but who knew in January that you were going to be able to get money back? So some people, my wife is I would say a pack rat with receipts. Me, not so much. I mean, if I didn't have my wife to help me, I'm not so sure that I wouldn't be scrambling at the end of the year with my books to get to the CPA. So she's more of a receipt keeper than I am, but they have been able to get all that together. I mean, one, you call a FEMA, it's kind of like calling the IRS. You call the IRS and you talk to somebody, and then you call the IRS and talk to somebody else, or Social Security, vice versa. You're not talking to the same person. So some people have told them that a credit card receipt will do, or a credit card statement will do, that shows the purchase from X cemetery during that date. So, I mean, it seems to be going well. I haven't heard any complaints.
Good.
Have y'all?
I haven't really heard any complaints yet. It seems that first day was a little hectic, but once they got that ironed out,
Yeah.
I haven't heard any complaints, but I also haven't heard about anybody, getting money yet either. So
Yeah, I haven't
it
either.
may be something that goes wrong a
Yeah.
little down the road, or when they start thoroughly vetting those files. I'm hoping that it'll all continue to go smoothly, but it's the government, so I don't know.
You just wonder where they're getting all this money.
Yeah.
That's where I wonder. I mean, we live on the, we live in the middle of Hurricane Alley, down in the Gulf area. And you just wonder, it's all coming out of FEMA budget. You just wonder what happens when the next hurricane comes. Because Katrina, when it hit the coast, it was a Hurricane 1 in Jackson, where I am. And I've never seen a Hurricane 1 until that day. And I mean, we didn't have gasoline, electricity, nothing. And the radios during that time would say, there's gasoline at this station. And everybody, I mean, the radio would announce it. And everybody would rush to that gas station. And of course, they didn't have gas.
Right.
So then all of a sudden, there'd be a rumor that someone else had gas. So everybody would rush over there. I mean, it was pandemonium.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
hope that we can get through that.
I totally agree with you. It's a concern, and it's somewhat of a concern that there's no cap. Like, you can be a multimillionaire and still get your $9,000.
Right.
Kind of
Well-
unfair, but
Yet the
I'm not-
irony, I think, is, and I talked to a couple firms in Georgia about this, is funeral homes that are stuck with bad debt for families that they served for COVID families, for
Right.
COVID loss, they cannot pursue that. So had the family paid the bill, they could have pursued reimbursement from FEMA. Yet there's funeral homes that are stuck kind of holding the bag, if you will, where a family they served was indeed a COVID related death, but they can't make a claim for FEMA through FEMA.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Mhm.
So Patty, just to clarify, you're saying the family never paid the funeral home, but now the family could potentially seek reimbursement for that money and collect that?
Well, what I'm saying is that it's not allowed for the funeral home to make a claim for unpaid
Oh, I see.
unpaid debt related
I
to
see.
a family that they served. You know, they're
really-
holding the, you know, they've never been paid for the service, but it was a funeral or some services that was provided to a COVID family, unless you know something else from that, Sarah, but that's what I was.
yeah, the ironic part is actually, I think the family can submit the contract as evidence of what they have paid and get money for things they didn't pay from FEMA. So it was very clear that you could either provide a contract or receipts, but hopefully they're going to require proof of payment, having paid the payment. But I don't know, it wasn't clear.
Luckily, we haven't, luckily our bad debt expense or even our accounts receivable is very, very low. I mean, it's just very, very low. I mean, I think to date, I think it's like $2,000.
That's
Everybody,
That's fantastic.
yeah, everybody pays, but it I think you have to show payment that you have paid. But you may not. I don't know.
It wasn't clear from the initial guidance that you had to show that the contract had been fully paid. So
Yeah.
I think
Patty
it's a
brings
gray
up-
area, and it's one of those that we'll see more questions about that as it continues to roll out the program.
That is so unfortunate that if the funeral home is owed money that they cannot collect. It's
Yeah, that
kind of
was a
like a
great point.
bankruptcy. If a
I think-
family files bankruptcy on a funeral home and then you go to bankruptcy court, and this happened to us, a family filed bankruptcy and we went to the 302 meeting and the judge ruled that we got like 25% of the funeral. And that was it.
Yeah. Now, the funeral homes, if they find out the family is getting money from FEMA, or they think they might be, then you can take them to court over it. But by the time you
Right.
go to litigation, it's expensive. So
Right.
it's
And,
lose for funeral homes.
and, you know, I've never, taking a family to court, depends on where you live, also can really,
Yeah.
you know,
It'd be a PR
people
nightmare,
do
right?
talk, people do, reputation means everything. And, we try, luckily we don't have to face that problem. Luckily we, everybody pays, but we haven't had an issue with that, particularly with COVID. I mean, I know one particular family that buried we had 4 people that buried their parents together and one person that buried their parents and a child together. So, I mean, they'll get a lot of money back and they paid the bill. They deserve it. But one of them is a high priced lawyer and he will most certainly get the 35,000 by the time they, reimburse him for everything that they did. But it really is a sad, sad situation that a funeral home can't collect that.
Mhm. I think Thursday's conversation on this very topic is going to be interesting, because I think we'll have a chance to get some feedback from other members, hearing about what their family, you asked the question, Sarah, if Trey had anyone who's yet been reimbursed, who's received the funding yet for it. So because we have people from all over, the United States, just trying to see how the process is going, and if anybody who has a family who's actually received the compensation yet. And a little bit of this conversation on Thursday will also be about ways to leverage the FEMA program to try to get some of these folks to actually have a service if they didn't, and then submit all of their receipts all at one time for the full value of the possible compensation. So if you can't join us, Trey, we'll
Yeah.
record it, because I
Okay.
think it might be interesting for you with these questions that you've had and the feedback you've shared.
I'm gonna have to jump off in a few minutes. I got a 2:00 funeral.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Nice to see y'all.
Hey Trey, I
Or
was on your
funeral.
website. I was on
Yeah.
your website right before we started the call, and I was so glad to see you added the selected logo
I did,
already to your
yeah.
website.
Yeah,
Nice job.
yeah.
Awesome.
Glad to do it. Glad to be a part of it.
We're glad to have you.
Very glad.
Well,
Well,
thanks.
I enjoyed talking to you. I got to get to this 2:00 funeral.
Thanks
Okay.
again,
Y'all
Trey.
take
Thank you so
care.
much. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Okay.
Sarah. Thanks, selected team. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye,
All
Trey.
right, bye.